Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Vermont. This is the Chamber's vodcast. You can catch this on iTunes and Spotify in audio format, or as you are watching right now, you can catch it in the visual and audio format, stuff we're putting on YouTube and our website and other places, our Facebook page. So hopefully you're tuning in through the video experience, but if not, if you're driving in the car all around Vermont or any other community, definitely download the podcast. It's the same audio, and I think we're going to be doing a couple more just audio podcasts to kind of speed up and make sure that we're more frequently talking to our audience. I'm Matt Harrington with the Bennington Regional Chamber of Commerce. This is part of our initiative to educate and talk more about marketing in a rural economy. We happen to be in Vermont, but we think that this podcast and vodcast could go to any other rural economy, any other rural region or community that's trying to figure out how in this day and age to mix traditional and new media to benefit small businesses all the way up to the Department of Tourism in your state as well. Aaron, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Aaron Fry from Fry Creative, been in the digital marketing space for probably around 10 years now, and have been working with Matt on some projects the last few years with the Chamber. So yeah, excited to be here.
We've gotten a couple good shout outs from the last couple episodes. This is our first season kind of starting. We're testing out the podcasting arena. But even in that, I've met with a gentleman that listens to our podcast, so a shout out to JP, who may be listening right now. We've had some other people reach out. It's just kind of a fun experiment and experience.
Yeah, it's been fun so far, and great to get that feedback from people. So if you are listening, throw us a comment, or if you have any questions, definitely hit us up on whatever channel you're listening. Or if you're on, Apple, iTunes, give us a review, or Apple Podcasts. So yeah, we appreciate the feedback.
Great. So today we thought that ever so often what we want to have one of our episodes focus on is the trends that are happening right now, especially in the new media or social media world. When Aaron and I are researching and kind of discovering these things, we find that some of the most beneficial podcasts or articles or whatever aren't just talking about the macro level of you need to be on Facebook and here's the strategic messaging and that kind of stuff, but really sometimes just currently what is very important on tools like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Aaron's, we hire you at the Chamber. You have an extensive knowledge of kind of being at the pulse of what's going on. So we want to take this episode to really dive in for some of our small businesses, but it can be other regions or departments that want to hear on, and just kind of what we're finding. I think one of it comes from practitionership, I should say. The idea that through just doing it daily, we learn what the trends are or aren't, or where trends have shifted, like hashtags, are they shifting? So we want to spend majority of today's show, I'm sure we're going to get off on tangents as we always do.
Right, rabbit trails.
Rabbit trails. But we want to spend some of today just talking about what are we finding on those channels that as of today, as of June, is pretty much when we're shooting this, what's important. Caveat being and caution around, this could change in 3 months, this could change in 6 months. So, if you're listening to this podcast 2 years from now, it may be completely different. We own up to that. But currently, what are we seeing in the marketplace that's very important? And I think people are watching some of our channels at the Chamber to say, okay, that's what they're doing, that's why they're doing it. So we'd love to spend the show with you doing that. So let's dive right in maybe.
Sure.
One of maybe the dark horses, or ones that somebody wouldn't really think about, and this, I think it tends to lean more towards the B2B market, and what we mean by that is the business to business market, not necessarily business to consumer or business to customer. So it's not about selling chocolates or flowers, although you could be on this, but really about creating business networks, and that's LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is one of those dark horses that came on the back of Facebook when it first emerged. It was really used as a Rolodex and even as a recruitment tool, still is. Now, they've really put some chops behind LinkedIn. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing there, Aaron.
Yeah, it's been over a year now, and who knows how long this will last, but it's, it kind of reminds you of the early days of Facebook, where there was huge value for businesses, and it didn't cost as much to get as much reach as maybe Facebook would now. So LinkedIn is in that kind of space, and really the the cool part about it, taking advantage of that right now, just at a starting point, is just using the network and sharing content, writing articles. Just there's a lot more visibility than there used to be, and probably part of that's with their algorithm, and that might change at some point too. But I mean, I know there's some people that are active and some that are totally inactive, but I know, for an example, I saw a post you did, and it was like, I saw it at the time when you posted it, but then I still saw it like 2 weeks later, they were still featuring it because they saw it as valuable. Right. So it's like, people are, logging in and checking it out. They might not be active, but you're going to get in front of them by publishing and putting out your own stuff. That's a couple of things I've seen. So definitely, A, using it. B,
simple enough, right? You get on LinkedIn, use it. Like,
I would be interested to hear how many people are watching or listening to this right now. Like, when's the last time you posted to LinkedIn?
Yep.
Maybe you updated your profile, or maybe you made a new connection with an old colleague or whatever. But I think, when's the last time you actually posted? And I think this goes back to, a reoccurring theme that we have with a lot of our channels that we talk about. It's like, this is another one where you want to figure out a schedule and a cadence, whether this might seem like a lot to, another thing to get involved with, but for the first month, do 1 post a week. The next month, do 3 posts a week, and work your way up to, a post a day on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we run into often at the Chamber is that there's a lot of tools and a lot of attention around the business to consumer. So, we'll talk more about Facebook and Instagram, but I know we have plenty of insurance providers, plenty of accountants, plenty of financial advisors. I mean, you name the services. LinkedIn seems to be actually a really neat place that you can provide that content. And I think, to get to what you were saying, at this point, LinkedIn is really providing the attention. And when we talk about all these new tools, I mean, that's pretty much the brass tacks. That's the lowest it's just, where is the attention? And like you said, I posted something and 2 weeks later you still saw it, which means that attention is a lot more available on LinkedIn, because I posted 2 weeks ago and then you found it 2 weeks later. So that's not going to happen on Instagram, and that's not going to happen on Facebook at the current moment.
Right, yeah, with Facebook and Instagram, it's like, and Twitter, you post it that day and it gets some traction, but unless you're going to put ad dollars behind it, people probably aren't going to see it unless they scroll your feed and really try to look at all your stuff. But as far as in-feed content, those other networks, it's kind of like it's gone that day.
Let's talk a little bit about posting on LinkedIn. One of the things that I find value in, and there's an option there, is you can make a general post, or you can make an article. I find that I probably do 4 to 1 article over post. Every now and then, if I find something in the news that I think is well warranted in my LinkedIn space, I'll post it to the posting function. But right next to that posting function, it says, do you want to write an article? And I find articles, again, that's attention, is LinkedIn wants you to join them. LinkedIn wants you to be found. That's the value for LinkedIn. It's not unlike Google. Google wants to find the best article you're looking for, so they're going to make their algorithm find the best article. Same with LinkedIn, they want you to be more active on their channel. So I find that even writing articles, and articles can be nothing more than a blog that links back to your website. So you might be a financial planner, and every month or every week you may be writing the top 5 things you want to know about financial planning for millennials, the top 5 as mothers, the top 5 things as business owners, and always be giving some of that top of the funnel article stuff and then providing a way back to your website. So I have found that articles over posts are important on LinkedIn. And the last thing I'll mention is, and I've talked a lot about this in other fields, but becoming a thought leader. LinkedIn, to me, is one of the best places that you can be the thought leader in southwestern Vermont on financial planning. You can be the best thought leader on even making chocolate. And so people create, I'm sure the chocolatiers of the world need their B2B too. Who's your provider, who's your vendor, who's your seller. So how do you make yourself thought leader? And I think it comes over, video is still available on LinkedIn, but also written word too.
Yeah, and while thinking about becoming a thought leader, I think that's a good time to also mention, like, on some of your other channels, you might, Instagram people post something about their food or their family or whatever, but this is more, I would keep it more about your niche.
Okay.
On LinkedIn, a little bit more businessy. You want to be authentic and organic and show them who you are, but I think people aren't on there looking for cool shots of, meat and cheese platters or whatever,
The meme world kind of has taken over LinkedIn a little bit. I hope they get back to more regulating that, or that the community of LinkedIn says that's not a value. And I'll tell you, I'm a believer in LinkedIn ever since they started. I used them a lot back in the day when I was managing my own businesses. I use them still today, but I almost get annoyed sometimes with like, oh, please don't make this Facebook. Please
Right.
don't even make it Instagram with a pretty photo. I don't mind once in a while, and it's got to be a real direct niche or a real direct connection to your business. And if you're shooting sunsets in LinkedIn and it has nothing to do with your business, stop shooting sunsets. Take that time to write a really good article about what you do.
Yeah, providing value. And I think another thing that sticks out on that network is, if you do want to be, more of an authority for your niche, is not. There's a lot of people using it in a way that is a huge turnoff, and we've talked about the spam that people use with the messenger. You can send people, sales pitches or conversations or whatever, and I think that's a huge turnoff. And you're pretty much saying I'm not an authority for anything when you get a new connection on LinkedIn and you send them
30 seconds later.
Yeah, your pre-written, thing that you're sending to everybody. I think that's where, if you want to be different and not look like a spammer or whatever, like put some thought into what you're doing.
I would say, contextualize that direct message, that DM. So Matt, I saw that you went to SUNY Oneonta. I'm also a SUNY grad.
Right.
Would love to connect with you, which is actually how I got my financial advisor today. So
Yep.
The one I still use 8 years later messaged me, I think on LinkedIn, and said, I'm a SUNY grad too. Can we meet up for coffee? So it works, and I think finding some of that contextualization to your message is always going to be a win on no matter channel.
Yeah.
Let's continue on with some of the other platforms that we're using and some of the really nuanced things we're seeing as of today. So Instagram, huge, one of the largest growing, fastest growing. It's an offset of Facebook now. Facebook purchased Instagram. Talk to us a little bit about just Instagram in general, and then what you're seeing in that market right now.
Yeah, I think it's still performing. This would be the top channel in my eyes as far as for both organic and paid media.
Okay.
I think LinkedIn has huge value too, but back to Instagram, things move so fast there. So I think it's really important to think about just like the split second that somebody is going to look at your profile the first time or one of your posts. I think that's, if there's value there, if there's good quality there, there's a better chance that they're going to engage with you and see what you're about. So I see some people might be throwing up maybe non-high resolution shots where it's like grainy, or maybe there's words all over the photo. People love photos, not for the words you lay over them, but the actual photo. So.
And let the actual text that you can attribute to the photo right below it be the text that you want to say.
A lot of people, it's a good intention because you're trying to communicate through that graphic, and there are nice ways to do that with, if you have some graphic design skills, but overall you don't want to have the majority of your content with, just a copy of a flyer that you are using offline or whatever. Put that information in the caption, get a really nice photo about whatever you're talking about, and that'll really, I think you'll see a lot better engagement with that.
One of the things that you've kind of taught us here, and I want to follow this thread through. So always imagine the consumer of your content going through your pipeline that you've created. You take a really good photo. Mm-hmm. They like it. They look at who took that photo. I love the photo of, the Shires of Vermont and this ice cream shop. Who did that? They click on Shires of Vermont. You've got about 3 seconds when they visit your profile. So I know you're going to talk a little bit about what's even in that biography that you're provided, but you also talked about the palette that you're creating on your Instagram, that you've got 3 seconds for somebody to kind of love your photo. Wait a minute, I want to be more introduced to the Shires. Click on it, goes to your profile, which has, remember, it's above the fold, so you're only going to have about 9 photos at most that people look at immediately and get a sense of your brand. And I think that's huge on Instagram. It's like, okay, I know what the Coca-Cola Instagram handle is about. I know what the Shires of Vermont handle. I know what Vermonter Made is about. Talk to us a little bit about that bio structure too.
Yeah, that's really important because I'm seeing in a lot of different industries. Well, I'll just make an example out of realtors. Like, there's some realtors that have an Instagram that they want to use for business, but then they don't have the mention of being a realtor in their handle or their bio, and they don't have their website there. Or maybe they have those things, but they don't have the actual city they work out of or region. So
there's no context to it.
Those are big opportunities to tell people where you're from and what you do in just a real clean way in your bio. So I would definitely take advantage of that. If you haven't done that, kind of just look back through your bio and think, what's most important for people that have never heard of me before to see there. And yeah, the first 9 photos, that goes back to, some people might claim that because more of your content is seen in feeds that the grid isn't as important, but I've seen a really good response to having a better grid where it looks nice. Maybe you have kind of a general style of photography that you use, that type of thing. So it's
yeah, and I think you touched upon it, and I think we just have to hammer home that spend some money on high-res photography, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
That really to set the tone for your brand, and I don't care if you're a flower shop, a chocolate shop, a shoe repair person.
Yep.
There's a huge difference between well-done photography, especially on Instagram, where that is the reason Instagram exists. So really be pushing that message. And one of the things that we found, and I don't know if it matters for every brand, Aaron, but definitely in terms of destination marketing and the Shires, I would say at this point we're creating 20% of our content, we're resharing about 80%. And I hope that that eventually changes, but budgets, and we can appreciate how often you can get a photographer and to be taking those photos. So we pay somebody to take 20% of our photography, we share that on Instagram. We also have a team that direct messages people that says, we love the shot you took in Landgrove, in Rupert, in Bennington. Could we reshare that? And I love that community because it also says, absolutely, we would love to be featured on your channel because that's only spreading our picture as well. So there's this great kind of symbiotic relationship on Instagram to share, reshare. So talk to us just a little bit about that idea, that concept, because you introduced us to it.
Yeah, that's been kind of like a hack that I've used with different clients, and it's been helpful because, like you said, maybe you have a certain amount of budget that's going to get you a good collection of photos to be publishing, but you really need more to kind of fill out your content calendar, and that's where this comes into play. And I think it's good to make sure you have permission because some people just it's poor taste to just go repost somebody's photo without ever talking to them. The only exception to that is we establish some hashtags, brand hashtags, that we then put in our bio and say, use these if you'd like the opportunity to be reposted or to be eligible for giveaways.
Explore the Shires is one of our hashtags.
Yeah, Explore the Shires. So we started out with I think there was maybe 5, and they were probably just us using that hashtag before, and then we put that in our bio and then made it part of every post we do as far as we use it as well. And I think there's, a few thousand of them now.
Yep.
So that's one way to do it. And again, think about a hashtag that makes sense for your brand. You can create your own. Maybe it includes part of your name. Like you said, Explore the Shires is what we're using. So be creative with that and have fun with it. And it's kind of cool to see more people adopt that as you're getting more content out there. And there's actually also a way you can follow not just people and profiles, but you can also actually follow hashtags, which is a cool thing they added. I forget if that was like a year ago or so, but that you can follow.
So if you're in the money market, be following those money hashtags,
right,
and then be connecting with that community. Yeah.
Yep.
And the other thing that at least if you're a destination marketing organization like us, there's also locations too. So
right.
So if we're trying to reshare or find out more that's going on in Pownell, Vermont, which is in our county, we can also search out those locations as well.
Yep.
The last part of Instagram, and I know we're gonna move through this. We got about 10 more minutes on the show. But the thing, and just a little nuanced thing that we're finding is kind of important and gets back to the beauty and trueness of Instagram. A lot of people, when they repost other photos, have that little repost icon in the bottom of that image that goes back to their channel. And one thing you've instructed us to do over time, Aaron, is to really just mention them in your comment bar, but not show the repost, because that takes away from the essence of the photo, which I just think is kind of a neat concept, a little hack for those people listening today. Like, you mention them in that comment, and that's an appropriate way to say thank you for sharing the photo at Vermonter Made, but we don't actually have to put Vermonter Made in the actual image. And sometimes when you do the repost app, it'll do it automatically. So what we have found is taking screenshots of that and sizing it correctly and then reposting it has worked.
Yep, that, and I think the repost app, there is a premium version where you can choose to not have the watermark, and that goes back to what we were talking about a couple minutes ago when we were saying, not having a bunch of words taking, even though that's subtle, it still kind of like muddies up the view of your photos and stuff. So that's a good, I forgot about, that was one of the things we covered a while ago, so that's a good one too, definitely.
Let's take on the big guy.
Right.
Let's take on Facebook. I don't want to get into all the things or just where Facebook has come and gone and where it's going, or the security and or is it privacy, all that kind of stuff. Facebook is an amazing tool, especially in these rural economies, that collect community members, collect niches, lets you share. There's billions of people on Facebook at the moment. You cannot ignore Facebook if you're a business person. It's just like you can't ignore your accounting. You can't ignore your product. You can't ignore your customer. And I don't think you can ignore Facebook. Talk to us a little bit about, just today in June 2019, what's making the Facebook algorithm happy?
I think definitely live video is something we talk about a lot, and I know you did a couple months ago now. You did the daily lives, and we saw some great feedback from that. And
we'll pick it up again.
Yes, we'll get back to that. So live, and I'm just going to kind of run through a few here. Some we're seeing with building actual following and likes for your page. You used to be able to kind of do that more organically, but now you really just have to put dollars behind building your following, and you can test out different ads to see what converts the best. Some might cost you, $3 to get a follower, which would be too high, and others might, be under $1 somewhere. So test out that and put some dollars behind that if you're looking to build your following on Facebook.
I want to touch upon that, because one thing that we find with our businesses is that they are satisfied. They think 300 likes on a page, 600 likes on a page. That's pretty good. That's potentially 600 customers, 600 people that never told me they liked me before. That must be it. That must be the highest echelon. I could never hope for anything more. Yeah. And I think Facebook, from what I think of, is just really a numbers game. The more that you put into that pool that likes your page, the more you can convert to everything from being your brand ambassador all the way to becoming a returning customer. So 300 people isn't enough.
Right.
1,000 people really isn't enough. That we need to be, I know some pages, just even locally are working on that 10,000 mark. So be thinking about that. So if you're looking at your page right now and there's 300, that's why I think, Aaron, you're talking about what used to be so easy to gain audience and likes. It just isn't the world that Facebook lives in anymore. It's a little bit more Instagram and LinkedIn. But in terms of Facebook, we got to purchase those people and put the page in front of them.
Yep. And another big metric I think is really important with Facebook is just the engagement in general. Running campaigns that get in front of people so that they share, like, comment, all those types of things with your content. If you have your Facebook pixel and your other things set up, you can then track and create audiences from there too. So. Yep. And it doesn't cost. Some people think Facebook's getting too expensive. I still think it's a good value. Sometimes you have to,
especially based on print media. And outdoor media. When you compare, and that, I think business owners have to look at that. Yeah. What does it cost you to put an ad in your local newspaper, and what does it cost you to put an ad in Facebook? It's still very reasonable.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important to. You might read a lot of popular articles or whatever, and you might hear people, it's popular to say that Facebook isn't as effective and all these different things, but in reality, if you're in the trenches like we are, you can see the value is still there. So I encourage you to, if you have the budget or the time to keep pushing in that channel, I would definitely say it's not time to leave yet.
One more thing on Facebook. if you were taking over a company and an organization and you had to run their marketing, how often are we posting to Facebook? What's your cadence on that?
I would say you want to be posting daily.
Okay.
Both with that, we've talked before about, with Instagram doing one or more.
Yeah.
Some of my brands, doing at least 3 a day is most effective for Instagram. But yeah, with Facebook, I would definitely say getting yourself up to at least once a day.
Yeah. One thing you and I were talking about before the show was it's interesting, and I always view this as like what the audience can absorb and where it starts to kick back. And you'll see that in your communities and in your audience is they'll start to not like something you're doing. And what's amazing, and you and I were talking about it before, really having this 3-hour window and then posting again, and you'd be amazed what people will absorb. And you may think, oh my God, 3 messages a day would annoy me, but it doesn't, because you're all on Facebook right now. Absorbing your news feed, and I'll bet you some of the best brands are in front of your face 3 times a day. You may not even know it. So I think you have found this nice little metric of like, of course, once a day is good, but even if we did 3 or 4 times a day, there's this give and take on that audience that needs a little bit of the noise to stop, but then you can put it right in their front of their face again in the next 3 hours. Right. And I think audiences absorb that.
No, and yes, you have to also think that people aren't, although we are on our phones all the time, you're going to hit different people throughout the day, and then you'll hit some of the same people multiple times. But overall, there might be some people that only log on at night or in the morning as part of their daily habits. So I think that's an added reason.
We got a couple minutes left. Let's hit these last 3 or 4 quickly. Twitter, I think we still need to mention. Yeah. And what we have found is a little bit more conversational. It's definitely a brand platform for celebrities. Very much so. What else with Twitter? What would we be noticing?
Well, this one, Twitter is another one that sometimes gets some bad headlines, but it's still where a lot of news breaks, and it's still a place where you can directly message with people talking about things that are related to your business. So if you search for, Vermont, and then you see people tweeting about Vermont or asking questions about Vermont, you could jump in there and answer those questions. Okay. So it's more, direct one-to-one, a lot of the stuff, unless you're running ads. And I think it's a good opportunity. So we were just talking about Facebook and spending dollars, and maybe you have already allocated your marketing dollars, but you're like, I still have time. Twitter, messaging people in this way would be like something you could do that wouldn't cost you money, but it would be, a time investment for you. So that's
great.
Yeah.
YouTube. Even when we were typing up this list, we almost forgot YouTube, but YouTube's so powerful, and sometimes we don't even see it as a social media. We see it as just a vehicle. But let's talk a little bit about YouTube. This vodcast is obviously on YouTube. Yep. We think video, Aaron and I think video is huge right now. Talk to me a little bit about YouTube. Where's the sweet spot?
Yeah, YouTube's great. Because obviously, like you said, it has those feels of kind of a social network, because there's comments and there's channels and there's all that kind of stuff. Subscribing, but then it's also a search engine. We've seen how people you can learn how to do anything. So but the thing I wanted to just touch on real briefly was there's a lot of people doing really well that are regularly posting, whether you want to call it a vlog or a little series, or if you have the capacity to film part of like your week and make a story around that, I think that's where there's a lot of opportunity that doesn't cost a bunch of money if you have the skills to do a little bit of video editing, or if you have someone on your team that can. So YouTube definitely, if you're not really aware of what is really going on there, I would start to spend some time, read some articles, and educate yourself, because it's with some of these vlogs people are putting out, it's really it's tapping into that like addictive thing that I think Netflix has with like series, where people want to keep coming back for more. So.
I couldn't agree more, and I was just even looking today. There is some departments, I won't mention who and where, that are going around and filming these towns, and they're great, but there's no personality to it. Or they are even filming these maker spaces or these makers throughout Vermont, which is great. We want to focus on that, but they haven't built the actual brand. So as much as you have the fixer-uppers of the world, the reason fixer-upper works is not because it's one more house show, which there have been house shows forever. Yeah. It's the personalities on that make that so popular. Yep. And you can go all the way back to this old house. he was a brand personality. And so when you're looking at the virality of these, tune-in effect is what we've called, is you've got to tune into it. I don't have to tune into yet another, hopefully they don't have to tune into yet another marketing show. They want to tune in because Matt and Aaron do it a specific way that I have bought into, and that's the brand. So I would say, double down not only on making your own show, figure out what your brand and narrative is, and become a personality on that.
Yep, and also I think one more thing to think about is if you were to film a series or start vlogging is like having a story for each episode too.
It's an episode,
yeah.
right? I mean, there's a thematic. It can't just be, again, about how you make chocolate. And each show can't just be same old chocolate. It may be thematic. And I'm always fascinated that when consumers have to then become marketers, you consume all these shows, like you said, Netflix or This Old House, or like even watch, the How Things Are Made kind of episodes. And then they're a little bit like scratching their head and clueless about how do they make their own shows. It's just very fascinating to see the consumer switch to a marketer and then be at a loss. So again, leave comments in the show notes. Aaron and I would love to help you, but I would even say watch what you're watching on the weekend. Write down some notes of the thematic things they're doing on those shows, and could you see your business aligning with those themes as well? The one time the machine broke, the other time where we had to go drive somewhere to get the chocolate, the Easter Day, Mother's Day. Yeah. So all of a sudden you're starting to see these shows play up themes. I think that's a very easy, studying and then pivoting to have your product in that kind of concept and show.
And I think you can have fun with it too. Maybe you have one, worker that has a funny kind of personality, but they're grouchy, but you can play off that, like where you interview them for like 10 seconds in every episode, and then you have another person that plays another kind of role. So I think you could have fun with it and be creative. And I think that's something we want to talk about more and more with all of this is like, you can have fun running and building your business. And
I was going to mention that.
You have permission to. We're giving you permission.
You can have fun and also make money at the same time. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Finally, as we wrap up, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention podcasts, which is exactly what we're doing. Yeah. Kind of what we call an old new media, in the sense that in the early 2000s, when Facebook and other things were emerging, podcasts hit a high along with other things. And then there was this like dead zone for the last 10 years, and now podcasting is roaring back with things like Serial. I think the NPR revolution is encouraging that kind of stuff, and then just platforms that are sharing these podcasts. It's a fascinating kind of segment because it's listening, which you would never think we're that good at. We'd be that much more visually kind of directed. But podcasting is emerging. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think part of it kind of ties together with the desire for people to kind of multitask in a way. Like if someone's going for a jog, or they're going for a drive, or they have a commute, and at the same time, if they could also be learning about something that interests them, I think that's part of the reason why they've been so popular. And we're seeing, we're definitely taking it a step farther because we're doing video with it as well. But maybe you don't have the capacity to record yours with video. If you at least started with an audio podcast, I think you could really see some good response from that. And I think it's going to keep getting stronger. Yeah. We just saw Spotify bought Anchor, and
Anchor, of course, is what we use.
Yeah, Anchor is a podcasting platform that's actually free, and you can create a show, and then they'll distribute it out to different channels. So we've been enjoying using it so far. Yeah. It's been really easy.
I was in a meeting earlier today with my financial consultants personally, and trying to figure out how to weave in some other thoughts. They love the idea of podcasting. So, I may have another podcast, and it's one of those things that really, if you regimented 30 minutes a month, even a week, but only a month even, you could have a series. And I think it gets back, interestingly, podcasting is much more conversational than even Facebook Live and that sort of thing. Obviously, we're kind of constructing that visually here, but I find that even when I'm listening to podcasts, it's our human nature to like the conversations. One of the easiest ways you can set up a podcast is you be the interviewer. It's not about you. It's about who you get on your show. And that also I have found, having done podcasts for the last 10 years, also gets you into businesses where you can have partnerships or other sales. So it's not necessarily Matt talking specifically about chamber stuff. It would be more about Matt going around the state talking to different people about marketing and giving their perspective. So I actually become the facilitator of the conversation, not the point person. And there's a nice little, there's a win there in that concept.
Yep, and I think the effect is similar to, a lot of times you might read a book from someone and you get to know them through reading their book, and then you trust them, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I actually need what they provide. I'd love to hire them for whatever it is they do. It's similar with podcasting. People get to know you at a really fast rate. And then, we've even talked to some people that have started listening to us that feel like in some ways they know us already.
It's a very weird feeling when you've never met them.
So it's pretty cool, and that is huge and a really big help as you're looking to kind of, again, make yourself an authority for whatever niche you're in and get the word out more about your business. So yeah, definitely I would get one started.
Yeah, why not? It's easy. Well, we've run out of time. We probably even went over our time, but we love sharing information with you. We will try and do these trending shows every so often as we see the trends shift or change, or when we find new things. I'm Matt Harrington. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast and podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.